Welcome back to another episode of the Social Media Millionaire podcast. We're doing a little bit of a different type of episode today. Full transparency, this was Sasha's idea, and I think you're really going to like this. So we had you guys submit a bunch of questions on my Instagram story, and so we're doing a little what would Kenda do style episode. So I'm going to just start in and go through the different questions and answer them as if you were my client or if I was you. So first things first, we're going to be like jumping all over the place. This is awesome. What offers would you focus on if you have a job and don't have much time? So we have a lot of clients come to us who are still working their 9 to 5, and their business that they're starting is more of like a side hustle at that point. And so there's kind of two ways that you can go with this. Number one is you can work towards a more passive business model and build it up to a point where you have the income to be able to leave your job, and then you can dive in with less passive, more active offers. Or what you can do is focus on one offer that's going to be a little bit higher ticket, that probably isn't going to be passive, so it'll require more of your time up front, but then you can probably get to that point where you're replacing your income a little bit faster and be able to quit and then dive into other things. So it depends kind of what route you want to take it. If you want kind of like the slow and steady, safer route where you can build it up more so while you are still working your 9 to 5, or if you want to dive in and front load a little bit more time with something higher ticket that's like a service, then you could go that direction too. So one of those two ways. Now, when I first started our business, I didn't have a 9 to 5 at that point. So Soren was doing sales. I was doing sales with him, but I couldn't go knock doors or work as much just because of like my migraines and my health and everything. So when I dived into launching services online specifically and building my own brand, the first thing that I actually did was a small one-off offer where it was just like a 90-minute intensive. And so from there, it was really great because number one, I was able to do enough to produce the level of income that we needed. But then I also was able to get really hands-on, one-on-one information around what people were struggling with, what they were going through, the positives and negatives, the mistakes that they were making, the gaps that they had in their business. And I was able to see firsthand inside of over 300 different businesses at all different stages, to see what they were doing with their marketing, their offers, and really getting all of that information so that I could then be effective in my consulting and the information that I was giving them. So I would say kind of two-pronged. Like one, do what you can do based off of the time that you have, but also try to expose yourself to as many people within your target audience as possible so that you really get a very clear understanding of what's coming up for people. That's only going to make your marketing better. Next question. If you were me and my brand, what would be the first thing you would do to scale? So obviously I can't fully answer this question without doing like an audit of your entire business. But the first things that I look at, there's kind of 3 areas of business that I audit. And then obviously you go deeper within each of these. But I like to look at your offer suite, your marketing, and then your sales process. Those are the key things. So do you have systems in place to deliver your product, to sell your product, and to market your product? Is ultimately what it comes down to. And then what I'm doing is essentially a gap assessment for each of those different areas of business. So looking at your offer suite, are there things that are capping you for time? It's going to take you too long to deliver. Are there gaps within your systems where you're maybe not providing as high level of an experience as you should be? Are there different gaps within your messaging around your offer and specifically who your different offers are for. And then I like to look at your marketing. So, number one, do you have a system or a process in place to allow you to put out content consistently, to be able to scale, to be able to have leads coming into your business nonstop? And then the third thing I'm looking at is your sales process. So, are you able to track leads effectively? Are you able to close? What is your close rate? How are you driving leads in? And do you have a proven process to be able to close sales? If it's a lower ticket business, obviously it's not going to be quite the same where you're tracking every single lead and having all these sales conversations, but you'd still be looking at those metrics in terms of closes, your clicks, your impressions, your open rate, all of that. If you're doing like an email funnel or a more automated sales process. So the key thing with any business is you need a way to acquire leads, you need a way to close leads, and then you need a way to deliver what you've sold to those leads. So when I'm looking to scale a business, any business, I'm looking for gaps in those areas from a system standpoint, from a skill standpoint. So is there something that you are lacking that you need to know? And then is there something lacking from a strategy standpoint? So different ways that we can take what you already have going for you and leverage it and really squeeze the most out of what you're already doing while also bringing in new things to bridge those gaps. Next question. You get 30 days to make 100K for a new business. What would those 30 days look like? Oh, that's so easy. Okay. So in this business, we're going to focus in on high ticket. This could be high ticket coaching or services because that's the majority of our clients. Now, what are we going to do? So within 30 days, we're going to break this up into a 4-week timeline. So week 1 is going to be all about setup and clarity. What do you need to understand about your audience to actually be able to sell to them? Number 2, what are you selling to them? Number 3, setting up the delivery process so that you can actually deliver what you're selling. Clarity, week 1. Week 2 is going to be all about visibility. This is focusing in on viral content, determining what is going to get you in front of as many people as possible. We want to just get as many eyes on you as you can. Number 3, week 3 is going to be about nurturing and conversion. So this is going to be about taking those leads that you have created in your second week with that visibility and starting conversations with them, pushing them towards a sale, and really nurturing those relationships. And then week number 4 is going to be your data review. And you're going to double down on the things that you saw created spikes in visibility and in engagement, leads generated, all of that good stuff. You're going to double down on those things so that you're doing each consistently. So daily, you are not only reaching new people, but then you're also converting people. And since we're selling a high ticket service, a $10,000 offer, you only need to sell 10 people. That's really easy. You could have done that by the end of the month. So the key things that we're looking at here, similar to what I talked about before with scaling any business, is just we need to consistently have a proven process to create new leads, to close those leads, and then deliver the service that we need to deliver to those leads. Next question. So kind of a joint question. How do you determine when to let yourself rest and when to push yourself? And then in addition to that, how would you, prior to all of your tasks, rank them from least to most important? So how do I prioritize and more or less determine what I need to be working on? So the way that I've gotten to where I am now is by a lot of refinement and iterations upon what I was already doing. So the first thing I do, and I would recommend to you with where you're at right now, if I look back at what I did, I went from doing a lot of one-on-one calls and hands-on time with clients to more so stepping into a management and leadership role within our company. So the first thing I would look at is how much of your time is going to high ticket consulting, delivering services, spending time with clients. How much of your time is locked up in delivery? That's the first thing that I would want to know, because that's something that is kind of non-negotiable, it's unavoidable, and until you can hire somebody to take that off of your plate, which I think that delivery is one of the hardest things to train for depending on what type of business you have. You need to have an understanding of how much time is locked down in delivering the services that you've already committed to. Now, the second thing that I would look at, and what I did look at as I kind of phased this out for myself, was what are all of the things that I'm doing that really don't require my face or my voice? So, places where I need to show up on a call, or I need to have a conversation with somebody, or I need to do a training, or I need to show up in content, right? Those are all things that require my face and my voice. Other things that don't require my face and my voice might be admin, systems builds, more strategy centered stuff, revisions, email marketing, website development. All of these things that don't necessarily require me to be there and be hands on are things that I looked at to begin outsourcing and shifting the responsibility onto our team members. So, once you've kind of gotten to a place where your schedule is a little bit more open, then I like to look at the business in kind of two different ways. Number one, and you've probably heard this description before, but I do take it a step deeper. People talk about the difference between working on the business and working in the business. So, working in the business are those things like we talked about, where you're delivering for clients, you're doing client work, you're following up and completing those commitments that you've already made. Whereas working on the business is more so front facing development, where you are pushing the business forward, you're moving the needle. And so those are going to be things like potentially systems, could be marketing, could be a new design directive, right? There's a lot of different ways that you could take that. But we want to make sure that you are, as a CEO and a founder, ideally, you want your time to be spent 90-10. 10% in the business, 90% on the business, because anything that's going to happen in the business should be offloaded to your team. Now, of course, it's a process and it takes time to get there. So, what I look at as well is the seasons of your business. There are certain seasons where it's going to be needed for you to be more hands on, for you to show up, be doing more calls, be doing more admin, and be kind of stepping in to fill the gaps as you are training a team, as you're scaling your revenue. But there will also be times where you actually need to take a step back and not be physically in doing as much for you to be able to grow. Because, and this is a hard pill for me to swallow, but it's more effective for you to have 5 people working at 80% of your capacity versus having you be able to give 100%, but then it's 100% of all of your time, right? So if we can have several people that do it almost as good as you, we're going to be able to scale farther than if we just had you doing things the way you would do things. Now, this can be taken in a couple different ways. One is skill level, and two is the amount of time it actually takes. Sometimes it's not going to take you as long to do certain tasks, but it doesn't matter because those tasks are not always going to be revenue generating. There's still things that need to be done. There's still things that are important, but they're not actually moving the needle forward in the business. So it's not something that you should be directing your time and attention to. So again, I look at things in seasons. There's times for you to kind of step back and look at what's going on and really be deeper in a learning and kind of future pacing mode. And then there's also times for you to be a little bit more hands-on and be inside of the business a little bit more. And I think you'll kind of, if you're in tune with your business, you'll feel those natural fluctuations and those demands on your time. All of that being said, on a more tactical level, when I look at day to day what needs to get done, I'm of course looking at Google Calendar and seeing if I have any commitments so that I know what time I have. So if I have a podcast interview, if I have content I'm supposed to be filming, if I have calls or meetings with the team or calls with my one-on-one clients or a live training that I'm putting on, anything like that that is kind of a preset time commitment, pre-scheduled, I want to understand how much of my day is going to be taken up with those predetermined things that I can't really avoid. They're things that need to be done. Now, once I have that understanding, what I'm looking for, and a lot of this heavy lifting mental load is taken care of by our system. We use ClickUp for everything. I will continue to screech from the hills about ClickUp, but we're testing kind of a new process, and it's been really effective, where instead of just having one team task list where all of our team kind of drop all tasks are in there, we have a folder. So we have a folder that's separated into 5 different sections. So we have a list for issue tasks. And this is number 1. It has a number 1 by it, number 1 priority. We have a number 2 next to our routine tasks. Then we have growth tasks, backfill tasks, and systems tasks. Now, that might have been a lot and an overwhelming feeling, but basically priority 1 are those things that need to be done right now. It's something that we've committed to that needs to be done today, or there's an issue, there's a link that's broken, there's a landing page that's not working, there's tech issue that's happening with the client portal, right? Those issue tasks that need to be resolved today that are top priority, they need to be done. Maybe there's a fire that needs to be put out. That goes into priority number 1 and gets taken care of. Now, priority number 2 are those routine tasks. Those are tasks that are not necessarily an issue. They need to be done, and they need to be done at a certain time, but they're things that we do routinely. So every week or every month or every quarter, those are those priority 2 tasks. And those are just the things that have to happen to keep the business moving forward. And then priority number 3 are those growth tasks. So these are the tasks that each of us have committed to during our quarterly planning meeting. And we've preset, due dates, timelines, responsibilities, all of that around our quarterly planning meeting. So then I can see, okay, I have these subtasks for this larger task that are due today. So that allows me to kind of just go down the list in order of priority and tick off the tasks that I have set for that day. And then I'm not trying to figure out what I need to be working on that day. It's just already laid out for me. It's been pre-planned. And so I just check off my to-do list and I can sleep well at night knowing that I'm moving the business forward and that everything is planned and we have a set timeline to get things out and the business is moving. And when I'm done, I'm done. So I'll check off those tasks and make sure that any content that needs to be done, marketing and sales is always my top priority. Especially if I'm prioritizing within the routine tasks, anything related to those is going to be moved to the top of the priority list within those. And then once I have everything checked off for the day, because I know I have things pre-planned and I know that I'm going to hit my goals or hit our target by whatever date we have set because of the way that we have these timelines mapped out, I log off. So you don't have to allow work to run your life and your business to run your life if you have systems in place that do the heavy thinking and the heavy lifting for you. Instead of worrying about getting things done and thinking about your to-do list and trying to figure out all the things that need to happen, you can knock it out with your team, do one big planning session, set timelines, and then hold yourself to those timelines. It makes your life a lot simpler. Next question. Would love to know more about outside of work, Kenda. So I think the obvious thing that I love doing the most is horseback riding. So I have 6 horses and I barrel race and I was a rodeo queen. And there's nothing quite like the freedom that comes with riding a horse. And I absolutely love barrel racing. I'm very competitive. I love being able to truly push myself and see what I'm capable of, see what my horse is capable of, and there's nobody else to tell me that I'm doing a good job besides the clock. I'm not relying on judges. I'm not relying on friends or family or clients or social media comments to tell me that I'm good at doing a good job. The clock tells me, and if I'm the best, then I win. And it's not based off of anyone else's judgments. So I love that about the sport. But yeah, I have 6 horses and I'm also huge reader and book nerd. I huge ACOTAR, Sarah J. Maas, girly. I love fantasy books, romantasy books, high fantasy books. And then I also read a lot for the business, which is also enjoyable because it kind of gives me a sense of control. And there's so much information that's locked up in books that a lot of people just aren't willing to access. And so I kind of feel like it gives me a competitive edge. It's one of those things where it's like control what you can control. And through reading, and whenever I come upon a bottleneck, I'm able to move through pretty fast, and we're able to develop pretty fast in our business and scale because I'm always just seeking out that information consistently, and I find it enjoyable to do so. I'm such a grandma. I love crocheting. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I am a big, like, the TV that I watch is very much like crime. Like, I've watched Criminal Minds probably 7 or 8 times. I love Scandal. That's my favorite show of all time. The show is perfect, and I will not be taking any criticism on it. And then my husband and I, we travel a fair amount. We ski, we mountain bike, water ski. Yeah, we just kind of try to stay active, and we spend a lot of time together, obviously, because we work together, but then also we have a lot of the same interests outside of the business. Yeah, I feel like that's the main things to know. Let's see, next question. How do you balance romantic relationship with business? So, Sorn and I actually did an entire podcast episode about this, and I thought the episode was hilarious. So, I think you should go listen to it. But it's funny, this word balance. And what I found is that we don't necessarily balance. It is very interconnected at all times, and we do share a lot of the same values and goals. And so, and we also draw enjoyment from the business, a lot of enjoyment from the business. And so, date night often looks like us, going out to dinner and then talking about strategies for the business, or talking about marketing, or even reviewing like analytics and numbers from our marketing data. And it's just something that we both enjoy and are passionate about. So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a lot of balance, but we also do, if one of us is like not having it with the business, it's like we communicate well, where it's like, hey, we're done talking about the business. Like, okay, that's fine. And then we move on and talk about something else. We don't really carry any disagreements. Like, if there's something that most of our fights come from things in the business. There's really not a lot personally that we aren't aligned on. So none of that really, there's nothing really to carry into the business in that way. So any disagreements that we have are usually tied to something in the business. And honestly, we disagree just like you would with any other team member, co-founder, and we don't make a thing of it and like take it offline or anything. Like, if we're on a team meeting and we disagree about something, we'll just have it out in the meeting and discuss and get opinions and make a decision there, and then we move on with our lives. So I do think that it's not probably the norm, the way that we're able to operate, but because it is something that we just both really care a lot about and derive a lot of enjoyment from, it works for us to be more involved in it, even like on personal time. So next question. How can I start with minimum knowledge, zero experience living in a third world country? So I'm assuming by reading this and the fact that this was submitted that you have access to the internet. So where you live really doesn't matter, and neither does the amount of knowledge that you have when there's so much information that you can get out there online for free. I started this business with a $3 Bluehost subscription and paid whatever the minimum monthly fee was for Tailwind to be able to schedule content out on Pinterest, and that's it. So it's not like it was a huge expense, and within 12 months we scaled to over $1 million, all from a $3 Bluehost subscription. So it definitely doesn't matter your skill level or what you know or don't know, or even your financial situation, because it costs nothing to learn on the internet and to create a sale. You can create a sale out of nothing just from showing up on social media and marketing organically. And we've had plenty of people send us messages telling us that they started a business and were able to begin generating income for themselves just from the content that we put out for free through the podcast, the Millionaire Archives, the free membership, through what we put on YouTube. So I would say just start. That's the thing. Like, you have access to everything. I'm assuming you have access to the internet. Just get a run at it. Next question. I really want to sell an ebook or PDF, but I don't want it to be pirated. How to protect or what format to use? So this is a highly technical question that I would imagine you could find an answer to on YouTube. That being said, I'm assuming that the reason Sasha pulled this question is because she wanted me to tell you that I wouldn't actually sell an ebook. If you're going to put information together to sell it, I would put a little bit more time into creating it and either sell a mini course or training or a webinar or a masterclass or something that is pre-recorded, or even put together a membership. Oftentimes the information that you want to share would be best digested and conceptualized through having a community and being able to ask questions. And so I never recommend selling ebooks. It's fine. It's fine as a tripwire, but if you're really wanting to scale and generate a lot of additional income, then that's probably not the path I would take, which is not the answer that you wanted, but it is the honest one. Next question. What is the best way to monetize a brand? So I'm going to be making a lot of assumptions with answering this question, but this is what we see a lot of with new clients and people that reach out to us. Is a lot of people will tend to have a social media or a little bit of a following, or they've been creating content, but they're not entirely sure how to monetize it. So there are several ways to kind of go about this. Number one, every single person in the entire world has some sort of a skill that would be valuable to another person. So even if you're just packaging it into a small guide or mini training or mini course and selling a digital product that's teaching something, very easy, very simple. And it's a lot better than falling into one of these MRR scams where you are reselling something that you don't actually know how to do. It takes the same amount of effort to sell something that you actually know something about. And so I would recommend doing that. The other path that you can take too in terms of monetization is, the affiliate and kind of influencer personal brand route where you are recommending products. But I will say that I would caution you against trying to go that route, because a lot of people have risen and fallen within the influencer world very quickly, and with just the over consumerism behaviors coming more so to an end within our society, I would say that maybe choosing something that is a little bit more toned down and not so reliant on consumers just over consuming would probably be a lot more sustainable and something that would be more stable for income. So my advice always when it comes to monetizing on social media is to determine some sort of value that you can provide and make a business out of it. So whether that's training, teaching people how to do something, or providing a skill, that's always the route that I would lean into. Last question we're going to go through. How are you so disciplined? I don't feel like I'm overly disciplined, to be honest with you. There are a lot of days that I get up with every intention of being super productive and end up doing absolutely nothing. I don't think that I am the most disciplined person. I do think that I am a very structured person, and I know myself and I know my weaknesses, and so I've built a business around that. Like we talked about in the beginning with the different systems, I know for myself with my ADHD brain that if I don't have everything mapped out exactly for me and I don't have a little micro checklist that's extremely attainable for me to complete, then I'm not going to do it. If I have to sit there and figure out what I'm going to do, I'm just simply never going to do it. So I've learned to kind of work around those things. And a quote I love, it gets repeated all the time. Who knows who actually said it first, but essentially, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that couldn't be more true. And so I do little things to set myself up for success, because rather than trying to change myself, feel bad about myself, I've just learned to work around certain things. If I know it's going to take me 25 years to figure out what to wear, then I'm going to lay it out the night before. If I know that it's going to take me forever to figure out what I'm going to eat, then I'm going to make it the night before. If I know that I'm going to forget to do something, then I stop in the moment instead of waiting to write it down or forget about it and create a reminder on my phone. I've done little things to help myself just, with habit swapping, where instead of having the notes app on my phone on the home screen where I can click to it and then brain dump something in a note and then lose it, I have a reminder widget on my home screen for ClickUp where I can just create quick reminders for myself, and it's honestly faster and easier than going into my notes app. So little things like that where you catch yourself, and the thing is that you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and so that hyper awareness of what you're doing is going to be the first step. And a lot of people try to browbeat themselves into setting up this crazy routine and changing their entire life and the way that they show up. And the reality is that you don't really have to change that much. You typically just need to optimize. So if there's ways that you can cut down on the amount of time that you're doing things, if you're creating extra work for yourself or extra steps, cut those things out. If you know that you're somebody who really needs things mapped out well for you, great, explain that to your virtual assistant and make sure that they're providing that information, that they're aware that they need to complete these things so that you can get your stuff done. Create systems for yourself so that, again, everything is mapped out, pre-planned, due dates, timelines are set, so you don't have to think about it. You just have to check off what's on the list for that day. The thing is when I have a list like that in front of me that's already been pre-planned and they're pretty attainable tasks, I'm able to go through and check that off and be consistent day in and day out without it requiring a lot of dedication and being super disciplined. So create systems for yourself, not only in your business, but in your personal life to make things easy for you. The other thing I'll say is don't allow yourself to fall prey to the idea of what should be, what you think things should look like. The 5 a.m. morning routines and the cold plunges and the crazy workouts and the 75 hard, right? All of those toxic positivity things might work really well for some people, but for me, they don't. And I would venture a guess that there's a lot of other people out there that feel that same way. But then instead of realizing, oh, this doesn't work for me, it instead turns into guilt tripping yourself, trying to force yourself to fit this mold that doesn't necessarily represent a productivity type that is going to be effective for you. So it's totally okay to optimize and work around what you already have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and try to be something that you're not. And the other thing I'll say is that it's pretty simple to be disciplined when you genuinely care about what you're doing. So if you're in a space where you're like, I just don't really feel like this lights me up, obviously there's going to be areas of your business that aren't as exciting to you as others. But if it's just a drudgery to get out of bed in the morning to run your business, there's likely some changes that need to be made and a real honest conversation to be had either with yourself or a mentor. Okay, those are all the questions that I had for this episode. So if you enjoyed this different format, be sure to leave a review, DM me, let me know. And if we end up doing this again, keep an eye out. We'll have another question box up on my Instagram stories so that you guys can submit and I can give you advice. I can't believe there were so many people that want advice from me. That's wild. It's crazy out here. But I appreciate you being here. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram. It's at kenda.laney. And I always love to chat with you in my DMs. So please send me a message if there's anything that you want to chat through or any questions that you want to talk about. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.